But then there will always be an element of potential chaos, I think, because we're in a room full of drug addicts. It could at any moment be a heist. We could invade other people's functions. There's some people doing some fancy dress bullshit over there that need messing with.
I think it's important to support Changes UK because they're interested in, once people get clean from drugs and alcohol, they're still a little bit, what shall we say, fruity, a little bit vulnerable, could easily go off the rails. That can last ages. What's very good about what Changes do is they encourage people to get back into work situations, self-employment. In fact, I think there's like 5 different social enterprises that Changes have set up. You know, like a lot of people, when they've taken, if you're a drug addict, ever so time consuming, you'll be taking drugs all day long. If you don't get a proper job straight afterwards, you'll likely be a nuisance, some sort of social catastrophe. So Changes is very much aware of that. Why? Because the fellow what set it up is none other than drug addict Steve Dixon himself. He's a man who's grappling with addiction on an almost daily basis. He's clean and serene, maybe not that serene. It's very difficult because like when you're addicted to anything, say whether it's drugs, alcohol, gambling, looking at pornography, or maybe playing too much on like a PlayStation, right? Like it's very difficult to crack out of the habit because it becomes a thing that you use to comfort yourself, soothe yourself, distract yourself. Now when it's a particularly punitive thing like substance misuse where the consequences get high because it's illegal and the risk of disease is high and the risk of, you get involved in crime, it's a very, what do I want to say, all-consuming thing. So your route out of it has to be similarly appealing, has to be very, very focused, has to be very, very well structured. I'm very impressed with what they're doing at Changes. I think what you're doing here in Birmingham is very, very innovative. The reason that I champion specifically abstinence-based recovery is that I think that anyone who's using drugs or drinking too much alcohol or engaging in any form of addiction is doing it because there is a deficit within themselves that they are trying to redress. And I think if you just give them a substitute substance like methadone or any other substance, that they won't address the motivating psychological and spiritual issues. Ultimately, these things, fear and anger, which are present in all people, not just addicts, but in the addict personality are a little more problematic, have to be addressed. I suppose part of the failure is that addiction is still regarded somewhat as an aspect of criminality, in that many of the illicit drugs are illegal, of course. So I suppose that in itself doesn't harbour a nurturing and kind attitude towards addiction. So what I think an example like you just gave demonstrates is that vulnerable people will always be at risk and that we have to be compassionate as a society. Until then though, something like Changes, where people are given the opportunity to help themselves, where self-sufficient and self-sustaining business models are introduced, that's really, really positive. And I suppose there's a sort of a sad inevitability to the death of the most vulnerable people, like homeless drug users and stuff. I suppose you can look at how addiction is affecting your own life, and you can look at supporting causes like this. I suppose if you, Changes has got 5 social enterprises. If you're in the Birmingham area, you can start using them. You can start using the hub space that they've created. So, and if you're anywhere, I suppose with a more compassionate and tolerant attitude towards people, to recognise that there's so much suffering.